old-fashioned groceries. What the hell does that word mean? That Japanese? I think I invented that word. Groceries. No one uses that word. What about your rice dungeon? How's it going? You would share a rice dungeon with what's his name? The Q-tard guy, right? It's like one of those secret Jewish kid tunnels that connects your all's houses.
Hey Danny,
I forgot to start the timer.
Linda Binda from TikTok. I wanted to make this video because I wanted to thank you for watching Cold Beer Confessionals with Will Bird. I think that's just incredible. I've watched a few episodes and I'm just like very intrigued. But you know what I'm most intrigued in is Big Daddy's meat stick. I heard that it's very thick, like a good old German sausage. You know, Linda and her coochie loves that. Oh, never mind. Let's not go there. Anyways, I hope you have a good show and enjoy it as you can. There's a lot of weird things that go on, especially when it comes from the realm of Linda Bindaland. So, enjoy the show. Thanks for watching. Peace out.
It's the art of the deal, baby. America's back to Joe Biden's economy before Trump tried to fuck it up. At least on our way there. At least on our way back to Joe Biden's economy before Donald Trump put a tariff on. Can you believe they're trying to celebrate this as some type of win? Told you, liberals. He had to back completely off his centerpiece of his administration. This was his whole thing. This was it. Tariff the piss out of everybody. And he had to back off of it. At first he posted because people were like squeamish around the stock market. Then he posted that all these countries are coming to negotiate with him. So that's why he did it, a 90-day pause. Everything in your shopping cart, so help me God, Atsuko, better be made in America. I will come tariff this foot up that ass. You understand me? He had to back down from everything that he was doing. And somehow they're trying to paint this as some type of the art of the deal, baby. That's the art of the deal, idiots. But 2 minutes ago or 2 days ago, they were like, fuck the stock market. Take it to the zero. Who even owns stock? We have no idea. Who even owns it? We don't care. Benny Johnson was telling people that losing money costs... Listen to this statement. Benny Johnson yesterday was telling people... I've been sharing it on Twitter. I'll just show you the video. You tell me if this makes any fucking sense.
Cost you nothing. This is just the reality. Losing money costs you nothing. This is just the reality of life. You're gonna, like, were you young and dumb? How much money did you lose? Everyone loses money. Everyone loses money. It costs.
Someone make that make sense. Losing money costs you nothing. It seems like, at absolute minimum, I'm not talking about opportunity costs or reinvestment losses. It seems like at absolute minimum, Losing money cost you money that you lost. Then you've also got to think about the fucking worry and stress and reinvestment costs. If you had that money, maybe you could have pulled it out and put it into something better. The just missing out on investments, right? Because you don't have that money. But if we zero down to the very basic principle of losing money, it would seem like it cost you that money to lose it. But whatever. This is the difference between him and this year after the Trump tariffs, and then last year when Kamala Harris and Joe Biden were running the White House. So listen, this is this year.
Losing money costs you nothing. This is just the reality of life. You're gonna, like, were you young and dumb? How much money did you lose? Everyone loses money. Everyone loses money. It costs you nothing. In fact, it builds quite a bit of character. In fact, you learn a lot of lessons actually by losing money.
It's blood.
Now this is 2024.
Bloody Black Monday. Holy moly. The Kamala crash is here.
Kamala needs to get in front of a camera today. People are losing their homes today. People are losing their fortunes today. People are losing their futures today. People are losing their 401ks today. This is shaping up to be one of the worst market days in American history. Losing money costs.
Did you see a difference in those reactions? Could it have something to do with his political leanings, or is this just, he's across the board, he's a good guy, and he's just looking out for you and your money? Losing money costs you nothing.
Losing money costs you nothing. This is just the reality of life. You're gonna, like, were you young and dumb? How much money did you lose? Everyone loses money. Everyone loses money. It costs you nothing.
I at least have respect a little bit. I mean, there's other things that I would probably lose all my respect for them during, but I at least have a little bit of respect for people that'll actually say, like, hey, this is silly, right? Shouldn't be like, if you want a tariff to protect something, obviously. If you want to protect our auto industry because you think it'd be too big of a blow to the economy to lose our obviously, right? If you want to protect from cheap Chinese something, another that might be dangerous and destroy our economy, fine. But across the board tariffs seems kind of wild, and it also seems like it didn't work. Seems kind of wild. Also seems like it didn't work. But who am I to say, right? I learned an interesting fact today, and I want to share it with you, chat. We've been talking about how billionaires, they started calling people panicking. This is another, hold on, before we get to the billionaires. They started calling people that were upset with Trump's tariffs, that were panicking over the stock market. They started calling people panicans, okay? Panicans, panicans. And now they're like, oh, cry more, panicans. Cry more. But we were advocating for him to stop his policy. It was stupid. He stopped his policy, and now the market is rebounding. Right? So what is, like, he did something, and we said, hey, that's stupid. Don't do that. He stopped doing it, and then they're like, oh, don't you feel silly now for calling him out for doing the thing that he had to stop doing? I don't. What do you mean? No, I don't feel silly. He stopped doing the thing that I said he shouldn't do. Only MAGA retards would look at the stock market and be like, we lost $6 trillion when Trump put the tariffs in off the stock market. And then the next day, we gained back $4 trillion. And they're like, art of the deal, baby. How do you lose $2 trillion over 4 days? The art of the deal. Who else could do it? It's the art of the deal. No one. That's who. No one could do it. That's exactly who. Like, hold on. Dow Jones Industrial's pretty good. We're still down from where we were before the tariffs took place. Even on 5 days, we're still down. We're still down. We lost $6 trillion, and the people that are posting, this is the biggest day in the stock market in 5 years. To offset the worst day in the stock market in 5 years. Like, we could have just kept going the way we were going. Like, Joe Biden left office here. We could have just kept going the way we were going. All this uncertainty, all these crazy dips, all this falling off the fucking, like, we didn't have to do it. Yeah, that is a good picture. I saved this image earlier. Panicans were wrong. Every time it goes up, every time it goes down, art of the deal. Every time it goes up, Panicans were wrong. Art of the deal, Panicans were wrong. Art of the deal, Panicans were wrong. Art of the deal. Like, if you can't get behind, hey, this doesn't look good for the stock market, even if you say, like, I'm no stock expert, but it seems like we keep having these back-to-back worst days in stock market history in so many years. This doesn't look good for the stock market. But what do I know, right? I'm not a stock market genius. Yeah. If you can't say that, then I don't know what to tell you. And do you guys want to know the real reason that Trump went back on his tariffs? First of all, it seems very, 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 very interesting that he made an announcement. He made an announcement that now is a really good time to buy. And then several hours later, he lifted the tariffs. How many people for 90 days on every country except for China? How many people had advanced knowledge? I mean, they're all going to claim, like, I always buy the dip. I always buy the dip. I just bought the... How many millionaires and billionaires around him had advanced knowledge that there would be a pause in the tariffs and bought in at the bottom and turned, a few million into millions more? I haven't verified this, but I saw a report that Marjorie Taylor Greene, just over the last several days, has now admitted that she bought tons of stocks over the last couple of days when they were in deep, 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 deep red. But I think the real reason is typically when the stock market goes down, people hedge their bets in bonds, treasury bonds. Money flows into treasury bonds, gold and silver too, Bitcoin as well, other things other than the stock market. But if you look at Bitcoin, it wasn't trending like it usually does. It isn't doing great. It is now, right? But it wasn't. Typically, when we see a bad dip in the stock market, Bitcoin and these other alternatives, gold and silver, they take off like crazy. Same thing with our bonds and the U.S. bond market. Last night, the U.S. bond market fucking imploded. Sharp U.S. bond sell-off revives flashbacks of COVID era dash for cash. New York, April 9th. A violent U.S. Treasury sell-off evoking the COVID era dash for cash has reignited fears of fragility in the world's biggest bond market. We have the biggest bond market, obviously. The $29 trillion Treasury market had surged in recent weeks as investors dumped stocks for the safety of government bonds in a tariff-fueled risk-off shift. But on Monday, even as equities stayed under pressure, treasuries were hit by a wave of selling that sent benchmark yields soaring by 17 basis points on the day, while trading within a yield range of about 35 basis points. One of the wildest trading swings for 10-year yields in 2 decades. The bond market imploded last night. And I think that honestly scared them. It's one thing when people take money out of the stock market in panic and they put it into gold and silver and treasury bonds. It's another thing when they're not put in the stock market and they're not put in bonds either. And they're pulling that out of our country to somewhere else. I think it fucking scared them. And I think the way that China is, here's the story about it. They could potentially crash our housing market. Mortgage rates are rising sharply this week as investors sell U.S. Treasury bonds at a swift pace. Remember, the meme video Trump shared was like, he's going to crash the stock market, so all the money goes into Treasury bonds, and they'll be forced to lower the interest rate. And I was like, they can't force them to do shit. Just because it comes out of the stock market doesn't necessarily mean it goes to Treasury bonds, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that. And nobody can force the Fed to lower interest rates. But it does typically follow. It does typically come out of the stock market, go into Treasury bonds, gold, silver, other things other than the stock market. Mortgage rates follow loosely the yield on the 10-year Treasury. Some speculate foreign countries could be dumping U.S. Treasuries in retaliation against President Donald Trump's sweeping tariff plan. I think this was it. I think foreign countries, we'll have to wait and see if anybody comes up with it. I think foreign countries are like, fuck you. We're heavily invested in your bond market. And we can really you're fucking the stock market, but we could fuck the Treasury market as well. Easily. But there is another even bigger concern for both mortgage investors and for all-important spring housing market. What if China, one of the largest holders of agency mortgage-backed securities, or MBSs, decides to sell those holdings as well in response to U.S. trade policies? And what if other countries follow? There are people that think that this is a plan to crash, like maybe Trump's in on it, maybe the ultra wealthy are in on it, maybe China's just doing it. But there are people that think this is a plan. If China wanted to hit us hard, they could unload treasuries. Is that a threat? Sure it is, says Guy Casala, executive chair of Inside Mortgage Finance. They're going to look at pushing levers and trying to put pressure. Targeting housing and mortgage rates is a powerful driver of something like that. At the end of January, foreign countries owned $1.32 trillion worth of U.S. MBS, or 15% of total outstanding, according to Ginnie Mae. The top owners are Japan, China, Taiwan, and Canada. Japan the other day let it be known that they were talking to China. If the U.S. is going to treat us like this, they were talking to China. China had already begun selling off some U.S. MBS last year, with the country's holdings at the end of September down 8.7% year over year and down 20% by the start of December. Japan, which had shown gains in its MBS in September, showed a drop at the start of December. If China and Japan were to accelerate those sales further, and if other nations were to follow, mortgage rates would rise even more than they are now. The concern, I think, is on folks' radar screens and being raised as a potential source of friction. Trump likes to pretend like we're so globally entangled in world economics. Trump likes to we're don't get me wrong, we're a gigantic economy in the world market. We are not the only dominant economy in the world market. We're so entwined with the entire world. Trump likes to act like he's holding all the cards. He's not. Yes, we can fuck China over. China can fuck us over as well. We can fuck over other countries. But when we're talking about superpower countries, first world countries, they can fuck us as well. Mortgage and specialty finance analyst at BTIG says most investors are concerned that mortgage spreads would widen in response to either China, Japan, or Canada coming in with retaliatory objective. Widening spreads mean higher mortgage rates. The spring housing market is already floundering amid high home prices and weakening consumer confidence. By the way, I think the government may have to step in and do. It seems like builders are on a trend of building more and more expensive homes. Now, the people that would buy those expensive homes are currently setting in homes. It's not first-time home buyers. It's not a guy in an apartment. It's not a guy that's renting that's going to buy these high-end homes, short of some unusual case, right? It's people that are upgrading. They got a promotion. They got a better job. They've been saving up. They're already in a home, and they're going to buy these higher-end homes, right? The problem is the people that are already in a home and are not selling are probably not selling because they're locked in on a stupid low interest rate. So we're building higher-end homes that are made for upgrade homes, and the people that should be upgrading are not going to because they've got such a good interest rate right now, and they know how their interest rate would go up, and they know how expensive homes are right now. The market that we're leaving behind is affordable homes for first-time home buyers, affordable homes for lower middle class, affordable homes for people that need to get into those homes. You know what I'm saying? And it seems like builders are trending to more and more expensive homes instead of cheaper, low, because you have a lot of the same labor in a larger, more expensive home. Labor is going to be labor and materials are going to be your prices on a home. You have a lot of the same labor, right, in building the home no matter what. Materials spike some, not in 2x4s and insulation usually, but like in high-end fixtures and countertops and shit like that. But why would they not, if they can build a $700,000 home or a $300,000 home and they make 40% profit on a $700,000 home, and they make 10% profit on a $300,000 home, there needs to be some type of incentive to get them to build more affordable housing. I don't know if that's the government's place or what, but there needs to be more incentive for them to build more affordable housing. It seems like that's where the shortage is. The spring housing market is already floundering amid high home prices and weakening consumer confidence. Given the recent stock market rout, potential buyers are increasingly worried about their savings and their jobs. A recent survey from Redfin found that 1 in 5 potential buyers sell stock to finance their down payments. That's a big number. 20% of all home buyers are liquidating stock in the stock market for a down payment. Hagen said selling of MBS by foreign entities could further spook the mortgage market. The lack of visibility for how much they could sell and their appetite for selling, I think that would scare investors, he said. To add to the pain, the U.S. Federal Reserve, which is a major owner of MBS, is currently letting the MBS roll off of its own portfolio as part of an effort to shrink its balance sheet. In other times of financial crisis, like during the pandemic, the Fed was buying MBS to keep rates low. The Fed typically buys these to keep the rates low, but right now they're rolling them off their balance sheet. This is a source of potential pressure on top of this whole conversation, Hagen added. It doesn't look great, right? China could really fuck our housing market while Trump's got a 124% tariff on them. Trump doesn't hold all the cards. He holds some cards. He doesn't hold all the cards. There's no fucking way. There's no way. He just doesn't have it. So back to the billionaire talking point. Remember how we've been talking about billionaires and how they basically I was in talking to Sage about this earlier in a voice chat. Billionaires basically never pay taxes, right? Billionaires hide their money, they hide their wealth. They try to keep from pay. All of us just work and we pay our taxes through our employer, and then at the end of it, they tell us how much they owe or how much we're getting back, and that's just it, right? Most people don't have gigantic write-offs, or they're trying to put money here and hide it there and put it in this offshore account and hide it in stock and get paid in stock so you don't have to pay. The billionaires do that, right? That's their entire goal. They literally pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to accountants to hide their money from the government. An interesting fact I learned today is that Mark Zuckerberg, one of the wealthiest men in the world, I think we'd all agree, has a mortgage on his home. He has a mortgage on his $250 million home. Why would one of the wealthiest people in the world have a mortgage on their home? It's $250 million. That's outrageous, but obviously he could pay that. Why would he have a mortgage on his home? Because to avoid paying taxes, Mark Zuckerberg is paid like a $1 salary from Facebook, from Meta. He takes the rest of his salary in stocks for Meta. And when it came time for him to buy a home, he went to a Silicon Valley adjacent bank and he said, I want a home loan for $250 million. But I don't want to pay for it. I don't want to pay the principal. I'll pay the interest. You can write me like a 1% interest. I'll pay the interest. But I don't want to pay the principal. Instead, I'm going to give you, at current market value, $300 million worth of Facebook stock, Meta stock. They take that Meta stock at $300 million. They write his whole loan for his $250 million home. He doesn't pay back that $250. He's already paid them in stock. Instead, he pays interest only, signs over the stock to them, and avoids paying stock on that. So he's got a house payment on $250 million that's just on 1% interest that he pays every month because it's way cheaper than capital gains tax. The same way that if he wants to buy a yacht or he wants $100 million to walk around with, he goes to another bank and says, I'm going to give you $100 million in Meta stock and I need a $100 million line of credit. And they give that to him. And he avoids paying any capital gain tax through that. And it's not just capital gains. It's not like my dad invested in Kmart in 1973 and we're still holding on to it and we don't want... He isn't paid a salary on purpose. He isn't paid a salary on purpose. He's paid in stock. But you could say, well, why doesn't he take out a $250 million loan and just pay his house off? Why would he pay interest? Because he gets incredibly low interest rates, and that $250 million that he could have paid on his house, he's going to use that to buy more stock. We were talking about today, no one likes the idea of unrealized gains. I don't think let's say you invest in a tech company and it takes off, or your 401k or whatever, right? I don't think that you should be forced to pay taxes on unrealized gains because that stock could potentially go down. That stock, let's say you buy stock for $1 a share, it goes up to $100 a share, I make you pay taxes on it, then it goes back down to $30 a share, right? That could fuck you over. But there's got to be a way to keep the ultra wealthy from hiding their money constantly through this. Oh, I just get paid $1 salary. I'll pay taxes on $1. No, you got paid millions of dollars in stock options. What? That's not true. You're just hiding it from everybody. You're literally just hiding it from everybody. It shouldn't be that way. There's got to be, I don't know if it's a time limit. I don't know if it's like the IRS gets involved. I don't know what needs to happen, but it definitely shouldn't be that way. It definitely shouldn't be that they can hide it forever. That they can pass it on to generations and never, ever, ever, ever pay taxes on it. I understand that the sentiment around unrealized gain tax is really, really bad, right? People are like, fuck you, I'll never pay unrealized gains. But there's got to be something here. There's got to be some middle ground. He will never pay taxes on any of his stock. And he doesn't care to give up stock because next year he gets more. Every quarter he gets more, right? Every time he's supposed to get paid, he gets more stock. And when he dies, and you think, finally, he died, he's going to have to pay taxes on that. He just passes it on to his kid, and they reset the value of it to whatever it currently is. They're definitely not paying their fair share. And most people don't think about it. So in the 60s, when the corporate tax rate was 91%, it was 91% over like $400 and some $1,000, okay? It was, if you take that to today's money, let's just talk in today's money, that way I don't lose anybody. It was 91% after you made $7.5 million. It wasn't 91% before that. It was just when you crossed that threshold, okay? If you're upset with paying a high tax bracket after you've already paid low taxes on your first $8 million, I don't know what the fuck to tell you. For their first, $100,000, they pay the same taxes we do. And then from their $100,000 to $150,000, they pay the taxes some of you guys do, probably. And you make from $100,000 to $150,000. It's progressive. So after $8 million, I think it's time to start turning the fucking tax up. Right now, it's at 37%. But when we were our wealthiest, when the middle class was doing the best, when the United States was thriving, it was at 91%. Does it need to go to 91%? Probably not, because there's a lot more people that are making a lot more money now. But we need to do something about the way they hide their money and take out loans against stock and buy everything, buy cars, buy houses, buy trips and yachts with stock and never pay their taxes. And it needs to be a lot higher. It needs to be a lot higher, over $8-10 million, whatever you want to set it, right? It needs to be a lot fucking higher than 37%. Over the last 60 years, they've reduced, was it 40 years? 40 years, 60 years, I can't remember. They've reduced their effective tax rate by 54% negative, right? They've reduced theirs by 54%. And ours, me and you, the regular fucking humans that do all the work anyways, ours has raised by 19%. They've reduced theirs by 54%, and ours is raised by 19%. When they say tax breaks, they are not talking about me and you. They are absolutely not talking about us. They're talking about themselves. They're speaking about what they can do for themselves. You're not in the group. You're not in the club. You're not part of it. By the way, I found Sully's YouTube channel. I know some of you guys don't have TikTok. I would advise following him on TikTok. He's a lot more active there. But if you don't have a TikTok, there it is. He still puts up his shorts there, some of them. Not all of them. He doesn't get nearly as... He's only got 200 and some subscribers on YouTube. But he does put the stuff up there. And then here is his... Maybe I have the numbers wrong. Maybe it's 52% and 10%. Yeah, we've seen this one, right? We'll watch it again. We got new viewers tonight. We got new people here. I know, because there wasn't this many people here last night. Here's the breakdown with cups. Over 60 years, they went from paying this black and gold combination here. Black is what they're taxed at. Gold is the effective tax, what they actually end up paying. And this 60 years later, black is what they're taxed at. Thank you for the gifted sub.
Michaela Robertson 81 gifted a tier 1 sub to BugJude53. They have given 51 gift subs in the channel.
And then the yellow is what they pay at. So basically, you can either pay attention to black and yellow together or just yellow. This is what they actually pay at, their effective tax rate. Yellow versus yellow. And this is us. What we're taxed at 60 years apart. Ours went up.
A tax cut. They're absolutely giving it to the rich people, and I can prove it. In the last 60 years, the top 1% have managed to lower their taxes by 52%, while the middle class guy has gone up by 10. It's a fact. You can prove it to yourself. When they say tax cuts, it sounds good, but it's only going in one direction. The current tax plan that we're on is a 2017 jobs and tax cut, which passed Congress by a vote, 227 yays from the Republican side of the aisle, and 205 nays on the Democratic side. Why? The fear of the $4.5 trillion deficit that's being created over the next 10 years that we know is going to this. People making over $400,000 receive the large portion of this. 4.5 trillion, remember that, because this cup symbolizes $100 billion. And in front of me, I have 12 of them, which is $1.2 trillion, which is the amount of money it costs for the Infrastructure Act for all of us. Unbelievably, they're willing to create a $4.5 trillion deficit, but they will vote.
The fact that they've dropped theirs 52% and ours went up 10% over 60 years. Again, when they say tax cuts, they're not talking about us. They might give you a small tax cut, right, that expires in 5 years or what. They might give you that. Do you think it'll be anything compared to the tax cuts they're giving themselves? Even if they came out and said, okay, 1% tax cut across the board. Do you know how much more that affects them than it does you? They're already hiding all their money. They won't even get their capital gains. They won't even sell their own stock because they might have to pay a 17% tax on it. They will do everything within their power to hoard, to use it as collateral, to buy cars and yachts and homes with it, anything in their power to avoid 17% tax. We just don't have the money and assets and shit to move it around like that. We can't do it. They can. You can't. You're not part of the club. There's a bunch of people that are talking about insider trading now.
Now, one of the many benefits of this show is that there's no filter. And I've never had a conversation with an advertiser. I've never done an ad read. I'm not beholden to anybody. So you really get to hear exactly what I'm thinking, right? And sometimes it gets a little wild. Sometimes it gets a little edgy. But when you have no masters, you have no bosses, you get to let it all hang out, right? But in this moment, you know things are disastrously bad when run-of-the-mill, vanilla-ass CNBC hosts are starting to sound like me. The market is tanking so aggressively. The economy is imploding. Everything's falling apart. And so now these guys are going, hey, man, what's really going on here? Let's have an actual conversation about what's going on here.
Oh, my God. Hold on just a second. Destiny tweeted out, okay, or all right, who in the Secret Service is going to step up and do their duty? Now, don't say it in the chat, obviously. But obviously, he's making a joke and alluding to something. Like, who's going to do it? So, some Trump supporter said, be specific. What are you saying? Like, trying to get him to say it to get him in trouble, right? Destiny responded with a screenshot of Donald Trump's tweet that says, "He who saves his country does not violate any law." That's probably the best use of that I've seen anybody use, including Donald Trump. Anyways, back to the regularly scheduled broadcast.
Here. And so now they're a little more unfiltered than they would have been otherwise when times are good, right? And they're telling the truth. They're telling the truth sometimes. The reality is coming out. The mask is slipping. They're saying the quiet part out loud. And so here we have Andrew Sorkin on CNBC, just a very run-of-the-mill mainstream type of CNBC host. And listen to what he says here about the Trump administration. This is incredible.
Given what the government's been doing and this administration's been doing, it would not shock me, and I hate to speculate, if we were to find out that a whole bunch of people who work in Washington as our elected leaders, one way or the other, ultimately sold stocks last week.
So Marjorie Taylor Greene is one of these people. It looks like right before the tariffs went into place, when nobody knew that this was happening, she put all of her money in treasuries. And right before the tariffs were lifted for 90 days, she bought a shit ton of stock.
Or potentially worse than that, shorted the market.
Do you understand how big of a deal it is that he just said that on national TV, on a mainstream network, a network that, like, my mom watches, the independent, apolitical swing voter, my mom? And this dude's out there like, hey, man, it's starting to look like maybe they were doing insider trading and selling before they knew the market was going to go down. And maybe it goes even further, and they're shorting the fucking market to get rich off of everybody's misery. That's definitely one of the things that's going on. That is definitely one. In fact,
the day before, Marjorie Taylor Greene said that, it says, this is unreal. Yesterday, politician Marjorie Taylor Greene said that people are panicking over tariffs are losers and failures. Today, she disclosed over a dozen stock purchases, purchasing hundreds of thousands of numerous stocks she bought when the market was deeply red. So this is her disclosure. It doesn't get very specific in amounts. It's 1,000 to 15,000, right? But when the market was deeply, deeply, deeply red, she decided to go in and buy all of these stocks. And right before the tariffs went into place, she sold a bunch of stocks. And put it in low interest savings bonds.
Who's the United States?
Which is this video. We're going back to Kyle. Give me a second. Martha Stewart went to jail for way less than this.
Buying the dip, and we have our first big name politician buying the dip, and that's Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's a United States representative.
She has to report these purchases.
On 4/4, she purchased $275,000 worth of stock. Marjorie Taylor Greene usually reports her purchases just a few days after, and so that happened on 4/7. I believe they have up to 30 days to report them. I'm going to post what she bought on the screen.
She sold, before the tariffs went into place, she sold $750,000, $750,000 in stocks before the tariffs and put them into treasury bond market. Okay? Then, right before the tariffs are lifted, everything goes red, dip, buy the dip. She buys it all up right before the tariffs are lifted.
Screen her trading report, and I'm also going to list them off, some of the big names. She purchased Apple, Amazon, Berkshire, Caterpillar, Dell, FedEx, Impinj, PI.
Just big U.S. companies. Just big U.S. companies that obviously are going to go up.
Heard of that stock? JP Morgan, LRCX, Lululemon, Nike, Qualcomm, and a couple others. Ultimately, there were 19 trades. Each trade was between $1,000 and $15,000, and those totaled $275,000. Most of these trades were made on 4/4 and reported on 4/7. We have our first big name politician buying the dip, and that's Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's a United.
That's kind of wild, isn't it? And we all know that she's close with Trump and the Trump administration. It's kind of wild that just suddenly happened, right? Don't you think so?
Was it Bill Ackman, I think?
The problem is, who is going to investigate? If all of Donald Trump's friends got a text that said, in 6 hours or whatever, I'm lifting the tariffs. Bye, from Donald Trump himself. A voice note, so you know it's him. From his personal cell phone. We all know it's him. Who's going to investigate it? Even if Congress investigates, if somehow they could push that through, who's going to enforce it? He's put his lackeys into every position. They wouldn't even investigate his meme coin. Even a bullshit investigation to make it look like they were looking into it.
A Trump guy, he accused Howard Lutnick of, I think this guy's making money as the market goes down. That's what he said. Now, he came out and apologized after that. Oh, I went too far, I overreached or whatever. But this is now what people are thinking because it's hard to logically explain how we are where we are now, right? And that's the other thing. This is the part. I haven't heard anybody say this yet on TV, but I think it's true. To the extent there's going to be any negotiations and any exemptions to the tariffs, Trump acts like a literal mafia boss, right? And I have no doubt it is within the realm of possibility for him to say,
why are there so many fucking people watching tonight? Where did you guys come from?
Want a deal? You want me to lower the tariffs? Fine, I'll lower the tariffs.
Am I being trolled?
I'll take them from 10% to 3%. But one of those percentage points are mine. He could ask for a flat rate. He could ask for a percentage. But like the corruption is so out in the open, is so brazen, he feels like he can get away with anything. He did. He got away with a crypto scam on his own supporters.
Yes. So just go wild, everyone. Yes. He got away with this crypto scam. No one even talked about it except for Democrats or some shit, right? No trolls. Welcome, everybody. He got away with it, so now it's like the Wild West. And honestly, I guess you could because you expect them to be moral people. You expect the people you elect to do the right thing, to follow laws, to be an example. But really, if the guy in charge is doing it and all of his friends are doing it, if you're not on his little hit list, seems like you'd be doing it. No Democrat's going to get away with it, right? Because they would string them up from the Capitol building. But if you're a red Trump supporter,
2 days before his inauguration, right? He's been having fundraisers at Mar-a-Lago, $1 million per person, even though he can't legally run again. The corruption is so clear and so obvious. The watches he...
Why is he doing $1 million per plate fundraisers for a re-election when he can't fucking run again?
He sold, which weren't even created, where it's $100,000 a pop, which allows foreign governments and foreign billionaires to pay him and get favors, right? Like, all this stuff is going on. Why wouldn't he do something like that? And now they're even talking about it on CNBC. Why? Because they're looking around going, hold on, you just sparked a global trade war based on fucking nothing. Prices are going to skyrocket. People are going to get laid off. 401ks are being wiped out. The dollar is now being devalued when it should get stronger in an economic downturn. Everything's falling apart. What fucking explains this? Either you have the most rigid ideology and you're the most irrational person in the world who can't adjust to new information and new evidence, or you're a total fucking idiot, or there's also corruption going on here and you guys are personally profiting off of it. And that's exactly right, man. Now, by the way, quite a find somebody made. Trump over the years, he's been in front of the cameras a lot, so he's had some moments where he accidentally says the quiet part out loud. This is before he was a political figure, but listen to what he says here. This should really, really disturb you. Ready? Here we go.
Find that I do better in bad markets. I buy things in bad markets. And you can't do that in a great economy. You can't buy it. Either you're going to buy it very expensively or not be able to buy it at all. So there's a lot of opportunity I find in the bad times.
So what he's saying is, when everything goes to shit, and everybody's struggling, and like medium-sized business owners and small business owners lose everything, that allows the top 1%, the robber barons, to swoop in and buy everything up on the cheap, right? Buy property, buy businesses, and then everybody's got to answer to us. This is what we've been talking about, man. He keeps bragging about the 1890s. He keeps saying the 1890s were the best time and we were the most rich we've ever been in the 1890s. No, we weren't. Only the robber barons were. That was literally the Gilded Age.
Gilded. Trump doesn't understand what gilded means because he's in that thin gold layer above lead or whatever, right? He's part of that insulated layer on top that looks like it's doing really well. The best it's ever done. We're the lead.
We had rampant child labor. We had people living in tenement homes. It was the Industrial Revolution. People were working these horrible, dirty jobs, getting sick and dying young. People didn't have a fucking pot to piss in. There was no social safety net. So the bottom 99% were fuckington, and the top 1% were chilling. And honestly, he likes that. He wants to bring that back. And this is further evidence. If everything crashes, me and all my rubber band buddies could go in there, buy up everything on the cheap, and we own everything, and people are completely dependent and relying on us, right? That could be part of it as well. This is straight from his mouth, right? So they're probably shorting the market. They're probably getting ready to buy up everything, Trump and all of his donors, right? And then on top of that, I think to some extent he truly is a believer in tariffs. Oh, in the long run, this will work out. No, it fucking won't. Because you're not doing any industrial policy. You're pretending like the free market will just bring factories back here. No, they won't. You need government incentives. You need subsidies in order to do that. And they're doing the exact opposite. They're doing austerity. So, bro, just understand what's happening here. And understand that when you get mainstream-ass vanilla CNBC reporters starting to sound like me, woo, boy, we are getting to a tipping point in this country. And it's going to get ugly, and people are going to be furious, and Lord only knows what happens from there. So, all right, guys, that's the show. I love you all very much. You guys know the drill. Please click like, click subscribe, click that bell icon so you get a notification every time a video drops. I deeply, deeply appreciate it. And yeah. Thanks for supporting me on Patreon. Thanks for the tips on YouTube. Thanks for supporting Crystal Kyle and friends on Substack. And also, thank you. Go subscribe to Corn's World. We're dropping the Kyle and Corns over there these days, trying to help a brother out. That's his channel now, and we're going to do KNC over there on his channel. So subscribe to Corn's World. And yeah, that's all I got for you. I love you guys. I'll talk to you soon. Peace. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications.
This motherfucker, while all this is going on, he's over here signing executive orders about shower heads. About shower heads. Dude, I've never, ever had an issue with a shower. I just go buy one. They seem to work fine. What the fuck? I've stayed in places where the shower head's like clogged and shit, and I'm like, this sucks. But like, if mine gets clogged, I just either clean it or go buy one. But I've never been like, you know what would help here? If this was a goddamn pressure washer. Adam Schiff. Oh, sweet. Thank you. Anonymous bought 5 6-packs at buymeacoffee.com/cold beer. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Many of the tariffs he had. So today, Trump removed many of the tariffs he had imposed.
There has been a limit for years on a shower heads could be like 2.5 gallons per minute. I don't know if this affects like, you know, like rich people have like multiple shower, they spray from all different angles. It's been this way since 1992. Is this like an ultra wealthy problem? Like if they have like 9 shower heads, do they all have to equal 2.5 gallons per minute or something? It's been this way since 1992, except when Trump was president the first time. He changed it. And then Biden put it back in place. Like, it's not even about pressure. It's about, you can get a ton of pressure. Like California, they limit theirs to like 1.8 or something, right? Or 2 or something like that. Even lower than the federal. You can still get really good pressure. It's about volume, right? It depends on how small the openings are to get pressure, right? You still have the same pressure coming from the city. It's about volume of water. Like, I don't understand it.
In this on again, off again, it must be Wednesday, tariffs are off.
But just that little change of 2.5 gallons per minute. I think at the time they put this in place, there was only a couple shower heads that even went above this, but whatever. That's neither here nor there. That little change saves billions of gallons of fresh water every year.
Off again kind of policy. This has just wreaked havoc on the markets, of course, but there is another profound danger as well, and that is insider trading within the White House, within the administration. You may have seen early in the day Trump tweet this. Yeah, this is a good time to buy. So the question is, between that tweet and Donald Trump's announcement that he was reducing the tariffs on most other nations apart from China, the question is, who knew what the president was going to do? And did people around the president trade stock knowing the incredible gyration the market was about to go through. Because look, this is a president who is trading in his own meme coin, even as he's president. His kids are trading in their own cryptocurrency. You've got people like Elon Musk who are doing their own conflicted self-dealing in the administration. In any administration this corrupt, it is more than necessary to ask, were people personally profiting from
absolutely
information while people's savings?
I don't think anything will come from this, but I still think we need to get to the bottom of it and make it. I don't think that Trump's DOJ or SEC or whatever is going to make moves on this, but we do need to blast these people and say, hey, this person did it, this person did it, this person fucking did it. They knew something was up.
Their retirement accounts were being torched. So we're writing to the White House to demand answers. Now, I am fully cognizant of the fact that the White House is probably the last place to be forthcoming about this or any other corruption in the administration. We in Congress need to do more than demand answers. We need to do the oversight necessary to get those answers.
Have you ever noticed that Trump declares something a crisis, so all of his followers will talk about how bad it is? Then they usually make it much worse. Then they stop doing what they were doing to make it worse. And then they say, crisis over. We saved you. Be grateful.
To date.
Oh, thank you very much. Pamela P. Pamela P bought 2 6-packs. Buymeacoffee.com/cold beer. Thank you very much.
Republicans have not been willing to do this. Not when it comes to insider trading, potentiality, not when it comes to anything. But we have been very fortunate in the minority that so many whistleblowers have come forward with information about corruption in the administration. Just a few days ago, I held a hearing with people who had to quit the
Pamela is my mom's name.
Justice Department, were fired at the Justice Department because they were observing corrupt activity that they would not participate in. We have tremendously benefited from courageous people. United States in his eyes. So we invite whistleblowers to step forward. But at the end of the day, we're going to get to the bottom of this, whether people were profiting off the pain of the American people.
They're just randomly claiming that 75 countries came to negotiate with us. Really? Do you know that Vietnam came to negotiate and said, okay, we'll do a 0% tariff. And they said, that's not good enough. A 0% tariff is not good enough. There's still these inherent barriers in your trade practices. 0% is not good enough. So what the fuck are they supposed to do?
Latest statement regarding his America First trade plan. As you all know, the president just put out a statement announcing an additional tariff on China. The tariff on China will now go up to 125% because China imprudently decided to retaliate against the United States. And as I said at the podium yesterday, when you punch at the United States of America, President Trump is going to punch back harder. In that same vein, we have had more than 75 countries from around the world reach out to President Trump and his team here at the White House to negotiate better trade deals for the American worker. We have been overwhelmed with the amount of requests from countries around the world. I'll let the Secretary speak to that. We will continue with the tailor-made negotiations that I spoke about yesterday. In the meantime, there will be a 90-day pause on the reciprocal tariffs as these negotiations are ongoing, and the tariff level will be brought down to a universal 10% tariff. The Secretary here has been a huge part of the President's trade team, of course, and will continue to lead these negotiations moving forward to look out for the American worker, which is always President Trump's goal. So I'll kick it over to our great Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent.
Good, thank you. And we saw the successful negotiating strategy that President Trump implemented.
The successful negotiating strategy was fuck everything up. Oh shit, we fucked it up. Let's stop fucking everything up.
A week ago today, it has brought more than 75 countries forward to negotiate. It took great courage for him to stay the course until this moment. And what we have ended up with here, as I told everyone a week ago, they're in this very spot, do not retaliate and you will be rewarded. So every country...
Do not What message are you trying to send to other countries? Do not retaliate, you'll be rewarded.
country in the world who wants to come and negotiate, we are willing to hear you. We're going to go down to a 10% baseline tariff for them, and China will be raised to 125 due to their insistence on escalation.
Secretary, thank you for doing this. Let me ask you 3 quick things. I'm saying clarity because the markets are open and they're wondering. First of all, Mexico and China, are they part of this 10% universal?
China.
Mexico and Canada. Mexico and Canada, are they part of the 10%?
Yes.
Okay. Second, given then that you have the rest of the world essentially calling it, it's not China, isn't this now just all about China?
Well, it's about bad actors, and what we will see is some of the very early countries are China's neighbors. We're going to see. I'm seeing Vietnam today. Japan's at the front of the queue. South Korea, India. So we will see. And as I've repeatedly said, and President Trump has been saying it for years, China is the most imbalanced economy in the history of the modern world, and they are the biggest source of the U.S. trade problems. And indeed, they are a problem for the rest of the world, because what we've seen is that as the U.S. announced a tariff wall last week, many of those goods have already started flooding into Europe.
So as you see it now, this trade war is China versus the rest of the world.
Well, I'm not calling it a trade war, but I'm saying that China...
What would you call it? You got 124% tariff on them. What would you call it if not a trade war?
China has escalated, and President Trump responded very courageously to that, and we are going to work on a solution with our trading partners.
Excuse me, Raquel, if I could just add to what the Secretary said. Many of you in the media clearly missed the art of the deal. You clearly failed to see what President Trump is doing here. You tried to say that the rest of the world would be moved closer to China when in fact we've seen the opposite effect. The entire world is calling the United States of America, not China, because they need our markets, they need our consumers, and they need this president in the Oval Office to talk to them. And that's exactly why more than 75 countries have called, because the United States of America is the best place in the world to do business. And as the president has shown great courage.
Here's another piece of the puzzle. NASDAQ, let's see. NASDAQ call volume. So people calling to make trades, okay? NASDAQ call volume spiked minutes before the tariff pause was announced publicly. Why would their call volume spike before it was announced publicly? There's no way it should have spiked before the announcement, unless someone knew before the announcement.
The Secretary has said in choosing to retaliate against China even higher. Elena, go ahead.
Hi, I'm the Treasury Secretary Bassett. Can you explain more the decision making on what feels like a reversal here? I mean, just these went into effect less than 15 hours ago, these tariffs. Why the pause now? What led to that?
No, again, President Trump created maximum negotiating leverage for himself, and which tariffs went into effect 15 hours ago? The ones that we have lowered went into effect a week ago, or they were announced a week ago, and we've just been overwhelmed by the response from mostly our allies who want to come and negotiate in good faith. So we are expecting them to come with their best deal. As I said a week ago today, don't retaliate, hold your ground, let's see what happens. And China, they kept escalating, and now they have 125% tariffs that will be effective immediately.
This Twitter page, Unusual Whales, was actually able to make money in their Discord trading rooms. They were actually able to make money in their Discord trading rooms because they were monitoring for when these calls came in. And when they came in, they decided to invest their money and made money. Not insider trading, right? They're just monitoring the calls. But they noticed that someone was insider trading and they were able to make money. I think people knew of the tariff pause and traded it beforehand. You can see before Trump posted buy on Truth Social, traders opened these three different things and calls. Right before the news, someone posted SPY 509 calls expiring today. Those calls are up 21,000%. 21,000% in 1 hour. You can see all volume was literally open today. That little green arrow. You can see all volume is new opening volume, not only on the 0 days, but also on QQQ and TQQQ calls. This is especially odd given the IVR on these was around 82 this morning with IV through the roof. The traders really wanted to trade directionally. In fact, using unusual wells, net premium, you can see people have been loading calls, trading for a reversal following these opening calls. Very clear example here in saying someone knew. It could have just taken one person to know and spread that to other people, right? Or one person within the administration does something and then other people pick up on it. They must know something, but still somebody knew. Many traders likely followed the call premiums trend and saw weekly and April 17th action. You can actually see the traders close their trades for millions. You could have followed these trades. We did alongside other unusual well traders. Come join us on the Discord. Holy shit. Somebody knew. Right, just so you understand, if you're not a trader, right before the S&P 500 SPY suddenly spiked, someone bought a huge number of call options, bets that the index would go up that same day. These were 0-day options, meaning they expire and they would be worthless by the end of the day unless it rises quickly. At that time, they were almost worthless. So it's not even that they bought stocks. They basically bought an option that they called in right before Trump announced this, and they bought an option that said the market's going to spike by the end of the day. They didn't just buy Apple. They didn't just buy Tesla. They didn't buy the dips. They called and said, we want to place this money that the market is going to spike by the end of the day. And if they wouldn't have spiked, they'd have lost every dime. If they would only put $100,000 in on these calls, if they would have put $100,000 in, they would have made $21 million. They were basically worthless. The market was down. And they could have turned $100K into $21 million in minutes. The green spike before the jump is not luck. It's foreknowledge. Someone knew what was about to happen. Someone should go to prison. They're not absolved just because Donald Trump said it'd be a good time to buy. They're not absolved from that, right? A hunch is not absolving people. It's impossible for him to have a hunch. Obviously, he was already planning this out. That's why $100,000. It's hard to tell right now. $100,000 would have made him $21 million. And again, it's not just buying the dip. It's not just buying the dip. They literally. It's like going to play roulette and betting on green. The bottom was falling out of the market. And they came in and said, I will bet everything that the market is going to shoot up like crazy within the next hour. And they nailed it. That's insane.
Is that because of the whiplash that we've been seeing across the financial market? How much was, what we saw in the stock markets, a part of this decision?
No, it's because because of the large number of inbounds, we've had more than 75 countries contact us, and I imagine after today there will be more. So it is just a processing problem. Each one of the...
So you're guessing that more countries will contact you now that you've lowered the tariff when they didn't contact you when it was high as fuck?
One of these solutions is going to be bespoke. It is going to take some time, and President Trump wants to be personally involved. So that's why we're getting the 90-day pause.
Clarification, Secretary, there was a tweet that you and Secretary left at the Oval Office with the President talking about this. Can you talk about what that conversation was like and what you guys said to one another that was...
Look, it's all the president's decision, and the president had a level in mind to raise the China tariffs, and then he had the 3-month pause in mind, and we were discussing the exact wording. Sorry?
It's the president's decision.
It was the president's decision to wait until today. And again, as I've said in the past, no one creates leverage for himself like President Trump.
Mr. Secretary, what does the president want to see by this, I think it's July 9th, deadline to keep things cost? Is it just trade barriers coming down, or is it more than that?
These are trade negotiations, but if countries want to come and offer other things, I talked about yesterday that we are thinking about a big LNG project in Alaska that South Korea, Japan, Taiwan are interested in financing and taking a substantial portion of the offtake. But again, in essence, that is trade because it will decrease the trade deficit that we have with those countries. So everything's on the table.
Raquel, go ahead. A clarification of the 10% on the pause. What happened to those countries who just had 10% baseline tariffs, like Brazil and others? Are they still going to have this 90-day pause? Because you were saying there will be a tariff of 10% from others. So what happened to those who just had a 10%?
Yeah, that's going to remain.
Do you call this an embargo to China?
Pardon?
Do you call this an embargo to China, a trade embargo?
I'm not sure what you mean by the word embargo.
125% tariffs, like those, and then impose 84%. Isn't this an embargo?
Well, it's not.
It makes me so mad that they claim to be out here fighting for us while we're still struggling on every front. And they're turning millions into billions.
It's China's decision that we have the deficit with them. They sell us almost 5 times what we sell them. So again, I think it's an own goal by China.
Mr. Secretary, with this signal that you're confident that you're going to be able to strike a satisfactory deal with all these 75 nations
it signals that President Trump cares about trade and that we want to negotiate in good faith. And as I said, each one of these is going to be a separate, bespoke negotiation. So we are confident that having seen the other side of where this could go, and it was like I said last week, the market didn't understand. Those were maximum levels. The countries can think about those levels as they come to us to bring down their tariffs, their non-tariff trade barriers. We're going to discuss currency manipulation, subsidy of labor, and industry.
Secretary, thank you. Will the pause also apply to the sectoral tariffs that the president announced, pharma, lumber, anything else?
No, it's on the reciprocal.
So becoming here soon, right?
Andrea, go ahead.
Mr. Secretary, so I'm going to ask you about what you're doing here. So the market is reacting crazily, right?
I haven't seen it.
Do you think that this move is going to sort of change and calm down the market reaction?
What?
The markets have tanked, right? And there's been a lot of volatility in the market, not just in terms of the stock markets, but also so will this move, in your mind, do you anticipate this is going to calm the markets down?
Well, I think what we've seen, I think the willingness by more than 75 countries to come and negotiate, I think now the market understands that everything they saw last Wednesday was a ceiling, and now we have a 10% temporary floor. And I think the market, in my 35 years in the market, I always wanted certainty, so I think we've got more certainty.
But Mr. Secretary, Maggie, go ahead.
Mr. Secretary, why do people assume this is the last word? The president began this morning saying, be cool. 5 hours later, he announced his new policy. Why will investors in the market assume that this is it?
Because, again, as I said, we've given 90 days.
Elon Musk is over on Twitter begging about paying $11 billion in taxes. It's less than 10% of what he fucking made last year. Could you imagine about bragging? And that's California. That was his California taxes and his fucking federal taxes. Could you imagine bragging about paying 9.3% of your income?
And only certainty we can provide is that the U.S. is going to negotiate in good faith, and we assume that our allies will too. And in terms of certainty, we will see what China does. But what I'm certain of is that what China is doing will affect their economy much more than it will ours, because they have an export-driven, flood the world with cheap export models, and the rest of the world now understands, because when we put up our tariff wall, those exports were already flowing to the rest of the G7 and to the global south.
Mr. Secretary, how much of this decision was driven by the bond market cratering overnight? What is happening? China selling their bonds?
I have nothing that says that, and we actually had quite a good 10-year auction today, and all this was, again, this was driven by the president's strategy. He and I had a long talk on Sunday, and this was his strategy all along, and that, you might even say that he goaded China into a bad position. They responded. They have shown themselves to the world to be the bad actors, and we are willing.
So China was literally talking to other countries like, hey, they're fucking us. Why don't we team up together?
To cooperate with our allies and with our trading partners.
Of course, it's going to devastate regular people. This is going to affect people with a lot of money, right? You can afford to pay whatever percentage extra on the shit that you need. It's going to affect the people that are just barely getting by and can't afford to pay extra on the shit they need.
Who did not retaliate. It wasn't a hard message. Don't retaliate. Things will turn out well.
What's your message to the
Secretary, these negotiations with these 75 countries, how long will that take? Will it be a matter of weeks? Will it be a matter of months? Do you expect financial markets to be stable during that time period?
Well, we started with a 90-day pause, and we will see if more countries turn up what will happen. But we have a meeting with Vietnam today, and we have one of the largest trade deficits with them. So I'm hoping it will move in a good direction. I was at the Japanese ambassador's house last night for the Cherry Blossom Festival, which was quite festive, and he and I had a good chat. They are going to send a deal team over. So we'll see. These are complicated negotiations. These are imbalances that have taken decades to create. But I think having seen the maximum level that Donald Trump is willing to go to, President Trump has created this negotiating leverage.
Excuse me. The secretary is obviously a very busy man. As he has said, he's had more than 75 countries that the trade team has to respond to.
Oh, I'm sure.
With this, for decades, Republicans and Democrats have said that these.
Where's a single sliver of evidence that 75 countries came groveling to Donald Trump?
Unfair trade practices are ripping off.
It is a circus. They are the clowns. You're right.
Are ripping off our country, but nobody has ever done anything to address it. We finally have a president here at the White House who is playing the long game, who is doing what is right for the American worker and our industries here at home, and he has put together a fantastic team in Secretary Bessent, Secretary Lestnick, the entire trade team who will be focusing on negotiating these good deals to put the American workers first. And
I would love for Trump to come in and do the things he said. Well, some of them, right? Like lower inflation, make stuff cheaper again, fix the housing market.
we're going to get to work to do that.
This is not what he's doing. This is not at all what he's just fucking shit up and taking away due process. Again, you might not think that these illegal immigrants should deserve due process. If they don't get due process, that means you don't have due process. Imagine they pick you up or your husband or your son. They label him an illegal. They throw him in a cell and put him on a plane to El Salvador. And you say, but my husband or son, or I'm a U.S. resident. Who are you going to tell? You don't think some of those guys tried to say I'm a legal resident? Who are you going to tell? The only person to tell is a judge, and they're not giving them chances to speak to a judge. The only person that can stop it is a judge, and they're not giving them a chance to speak to a judge. They could pick me up. I'm a veteran and a U.S. citizen, and I could be in El Salvador before I ever had a chance to prove who the fuck I am. I keep bouncing back and forth between, is he a complete fucking idiot, or is he doing it on purpose to consolidate wealth at the top? It's hard to decide, honestly. It is quite the back. I don't know. Oh, this is the one I was looking for. This is the meme I was looking for earlier. I need to save this. MAGA economics. The economy without tariffs was doing this. But now we've dropped all the way down here and we're starting to rebound. And they're like, see, tariffs work. Tariffs are really good, but it's also really good if they're paused or if we don't do them at all or if we never speak about tariffs again. Unless you want to talk about tariffs, then they're really good. And Trump is the best at tariffs. Unless we don't do tariffs. And in that case, then we don't need them. Art of the deal, man. Art of the deal. It's fucking wild. How do they keep justifying this? I don't know. Who does? Whoever will. Yeah. Behind the scenes with Kristi Noem. She looks like she's totally held the gun before, except that one time that she shot at and killed a dog.
Where is the... So don't reach for any of the guns. Okay, that's rule number 1 in the Bearcat.
Human trafficker. Drug trafficker. Some really bad dudes. We're going to go get them with the secretary driving.
Awesome. Stay tuned.
For murder, so appreciate the good work that they do every day, and we appreciate them working to make America safe.
Did you catch that? Look how she's holding this gun. Yeah, it's fucking Phoenix. Then they immediately have to take the gun away. Give me that gun. Give me that gun. Give it to me. Take that away. Give me that gun.
This one is a little. They already talked the coffee.
Yeah, just sign up. Yeah, like the boat. Setting. Full speed ahead.
Wait for the rest of the.
These cars going. All right.
It's like cosplay, dude. Secretary Noem's really driving. She's driving the Bearcat. You wonder how many people asked for this number of the 60-year-old burlap sack? I don't know. These guys look pretty young.
Given what the government's been doing and this administration's been doing, it would not shock me, and I hate to speculate, if we were to find out that a whole bunch of people who work in Washington as our elected leaders, one way or the other, ultimately sold stocks last week.
I don't know. She's probably 55, at least.
Or potentially worse than that, shorted the market.
CNBC's Andrew Ross Sorkin may have been onto something when he shared his suspicion that government officials and elected politicians might have been gaming the stock market or gaming a stock market crash in order to, cash in, doing it to their advantage. Because new reporting from Sludge has found that Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene has been making some pretty fishy trades, Shink.
Interesting. And the timing of the trades are also
Imagine that.
Curious.
Yes.
So I'm going to tell you how what scenario those trades might make sense and what scenario they don't make sense, and then we'll see which one Marjorie Taylor Greene fits into.
So look, you probably won't be surprised to find that publicly, Marjorie Taylor Greene has been very supportive of Donald Trump's trade policies. She posts about it on X. She's done so repeatedly. I'll give you a taste of just a few of her posts. In one example, she writes, "America first means American workers first."
Didn't she have an affair with that Lewandowski guy?
These tariffs are Liberation Day for steelworkers, auto workers, and every forgotten small town. Empty factories will be full again. President Trump is bringing our economic independence back. Now, that's a common message that you'll hear from Trump supporters, certainly those closest to him and elected lawmakers as well. I'll give you some more examples. She writes, "The COVID vaccine experts and couch stock traders need to take a look at the history of the stock market. They didn't care when the stock market was down big under Joe Biden's America Last policies. This is a short-lived correction that will end up paying dividends for American workers and manufacturers across the country." Now, let me just pause and say I'm still
Or the ultra wealthy that timed it right, that had insider knowledge. Sure.
very skeptical.
Dude, somebody with that much power, it's just crazy to think all those people around him probably bought a shit ton of fucking stock and quadrupled at least their money in a few minutes.
That the real intent here by the Trump administration is to bring manufacturing jobs back. In fact, we're getting a little more clarity from his Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, about how this is really just an effort to renegotiate trade deals. But I digress. So all of that I just shared with you in regard to her post are noteworthy because between March 17th and March 25th, Marjorie Taylor Greene bought up to $750,000 worth of Treasury bonds. Now, Jake, why would anyone buy Treasury bonds?
Because when the market crashes, people take their money out. That's why they're selling the stocks. That's why the stocks are going down. Then they have cash. Where do they put that cash? They usually put it in Treasury bonds because they're safer. That's where you want to go in times that are volatile like this. So the value of those Treasury bonds then go up. And we've now found out, thanks to Bill Ackman, a billionaire donor of Trump, that Howard Lutnick, his former firm, Cantor Fitzgerald, heavily in bonds and are probably making a killing from this. So when they went into bonds is a different...
Yeah, incredibly ugly. Have you guys ever seen this picture, MTG? This is an image. The model on the left is a museum of confluences in Lyon, France. It depicts Neanderthal woman. Like, there's no fucking what. They made that after her, right? Like, they modeled this after her. They had to have. I don't... She looks like every cave woman that's ever existed. It's wild.
question than this story, but it's another example.
Got me speechless over here.
The market's going to crash. You'd go into treasury bonds.
That's exactly right.
And that's exactly what she did.
And that's what she did ahead of Trump's tariffs announcement on Liberation Day. Okay, so she moves a ton of money up to that amount, right? $750,000. The reason why we don't know the exact amount is because members of Congress, while they have to disclose what they're trading, they don't have to disclose the exact amount. They disclose a range. They say that they've, invested a range of money. Now, with that said,
between 1 and 15,000 or above 15,000.
She invests in bonds right before the Liberation Day announcement, but then something else happens. So let's go to Unusual Whales, my favorite X account. They write, this is unusual. Yesterday, meaning on April 7th, politician Marjorie Taylor Greene said that people panicking over tariffs are losers and failures. Today, she disclosed over a dozen stock purchases, purchasing purchasing hundred of thousands of numerous stocks. There we go. So she bought when the market was deeply red. So what kind of stocks did she buy? She bought stock in Amazon, JP Morgan Chase, Lululemon, Apple, and many, many more. And she bought up to $1.5 million worth of stock year to date. Now, all of this is especially concerning, when you consider that last week the president himself reposted a video essentially stating that he crashed the stock market on purpose. I'm not kidding. He posted this. Take a look.
Trump is crashing the stock market by 20% this month, but he's doing it on purpose. And this is why Warren Buffett just said Trump is making the best economic moves he's seen in over 50 years. Now, here's the secret game he's playing, and it could make you rich. So why is he doing this? To push cash into treasuries, which forces the Fed to slash interest rates in May, and those lower rates give the Fed the ability to refinance trillions of debt very inexpensively. It also weakens the dollar and drops mortgage rates. Now, it's a wild chess move, but it's working. Now, you're probably wondering, what about his tariffs? Well, I'll tell you, it's a genius play. It actually forces companies to build here to dodge them. It also forces farmers to sell more of their products here in the U.S. to bring grocery prices way down. We've already seen this with eggs. Now remember, 94% of all stock...
That's not how... The farmers already have their stuff sold, right? If they sold a shit ton to China and then suddenly we're not sending them to China, it's just going to rot.
Stocks are owned only by 8% of Americans. So Trump, he's taking from the rich short term and handing it to the middle class through lower prices.
He's Robin Hood.
Warren Buffett said no such thing. That was totally made up, and there were all sorts of inaccuracies in that video. But
can I just say, point out a couple of those, and then we'll get to the point. So he's not handing anything to the middle class. He's taking from the rich, but he's also taking from the middle class, because this is going to not lead to lower prices, it's going to lead to higher prices. That's the problem. If it was leading to lower prices, we'd be thrilled. And bragging about how you're weakening the dollar is not the brag you think it is, and that could be a huge problem for America. So this guy's playing with fire. That video had so many things that were wrong with it and just simply not true. And of course, Trump retweets it. And so it's frustrating that they're not bothering to get any of the details right. You could make a real case for tariffs, as we said before.
Because, look, this whole attempt to implement or impose tariffs isn't real, okay? Like, it's become very clear to me. We're going to get to that, and I'm going to make my argument in regard to that in just a minute. But before I do, I just want to stay on this topic of Marjorie Taylor Greene's stock and bond trades, because the timing is, in fact, fishy. This is the reason why I personally have a huge problem with members of Congress trading individual stocks. And it's not just about Marjorie Taylor Greene. I want to be clear. There are plenty of Democrats in Congress who have also made all sorts of fishy stock trades at fishy times of the year when they're, negotiating legislation or they're having closed-door briefings. There were all sorts of stories that were coming out during the COVID pandemic where, they had all those closed-door briefings prior to the rest of the public knowing about this global pandemic, and they were making stock trades before the rest of the public was privy to the shutdowns that were about to come. So this is not a Democrat versus Republican thing. This is a corruption thing that is rooted deeply in the halls of Congress right now. This is a big problem, in my opinion. And I remember, Cenk, you and I, after the show yesterday, looked at how the stock market had rebounded a little bit, and I remember we looked at each other and said, they know something that we don't know yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but to be fair, it's gone up and down so much now that, that it's possible that they don't know either. Look, guys, there's no single they. There's a lot of different factors, and there are people who sometimes drive the market up.
Somebody fucking knew.
Up and down based on giant options trades.
In short, this equation derived and published.
Oh God. Oh God. Stand Up Mask got a hold of it.
By the Trump administration, combined with their own numbers, nothing to do with me or anyone else, predicts that there will be over 10% inflation on all goods imported into the US as paid by US consumers. Their numbers, their equation. Let me explain.
I'd like to see the chart if you have it. I think you can, for the most part, see it. Those with good eyes, with bad eyes. Thanks a lot. I think you better take it with you. It's not going to last very long.
2 days ago, Trump had a big press event to celebrate Liberation Day where he waved around some physical spreadsheets, which obviously caught my eye. And watching the footage, I'm like, it looks like the second column is just half the first column. But
by the way, all of you guys that are big Apple fans, they just announced their new software, right, for their new phones, and they quietly made a deal with Starlink. You know how Apple's always had that emergency SOS text where you can use satellites to text if you have no service? Well, that was called the Global Star System, I think is what they called it. Now that's all signed up with Starlink. So there you go. Another deal in the works.
with a floor of 10%. So of course I went and found them online, put them into an actual spreadsheet, put in a formula, and yes, the second column is just half the first column, but with a minimum of 10%. I was like, that's interesting. I didn't put any further thought into where those equations come from. I'd satisfied my curiosity for the time, because the next day, the Trump administration, they know how to get me. They released an equation. They're like, this is the equation of where those percentages came
There you go.
Like, okay, fine, I'll do it. So I had a closer look at the equation, and I'm now qualified to talk you through it. This equation does indeed calculate all the values in that first column of the spreadsheet Trump was waving around, which means it represents the tariffs charged to the USA, and I quote, including currency manipulation and trade barriers. Except it doesn't. That's not what that is. This is not calculating the tariffs other countries are charging the US. This is calculating
Of course it's not.
tariffs
Why would it?
the US would have to charge other countries in order to get trade balance. For example, last year, Australia bought from the US $34.6 billion worth of stuff. And that's US dollars, not the local dollary dues. At the same time, the US only bought $16.7 billion worth of things from Australia. So from the US's point of view, Australia gave them more money than the US gave Australia, to the tune of a $17.6 billion trade surplus. And surplus sounds positive, it just means Australia bought more things from the US than it sold. Now,
That's textbook stock market manipulation. I don't think he can do that. Like, if he knew that he was going to come pause the tariffs today, he can't fucking go tell people buy.
New Zealand is the other way around. Very similar country, I would say, not everyone would. And Australia bought from the US $4.5 billion worth of things last year. The US, however, bought $5.5 billion worth of things from New Zealand. So that means the US is running a £1.1 billion deficit, a trade deficit, which sounds bad. It just means the US bought a lot of, I don't know, New Zealand wine. But let's just say hypothetically it was bad, and the US wanted to balance out its trade with New Zealand. It would need to reduce the amount it imports from New Zealand by 19.6% to get back down to parity. And that is what this equation tells you. On the left-hand side, that triangle is a delta. That represents the amount of change. The T-looking thing represents tariffs, and the I just means for one specific country. Country I. So, for example, we'll stick with New Zealand for now. So this means the formula is calculating the change in tariffs the US would have to charge country I, New Zealand. And that is to achieve trade balance. On the right-hand side, we work that out. X is the amount the US is exporting to that country. M is the amount it's importing from that country. So the difference is the trade imbalance, although wrong way around. Get to that in a moment. Underneath is where it gets fun. M is still the imports, but epsilon, the E thing, that represents the elasticity of demand for the imports going into the US. And the phi symbol, that represents the price pass-through of tariffs. That's a ratio.
And these just cancel each other out.
Of how much of the costs are passed on. Okay, so we'll break it down with an example. Let's say the US is importing a bottle of wine from New Zealand that would normally sell for, I don't know, $100. And the reason it's $100
He posted it a few hours before he pulled the tariffs.
is tariffs are currently 0%, that's our baseline, and demand is 100%, but then tariffs go up by down to tau, let's just say 20% for argument's sake. How much is that going to change the price? Well, that depends how much of this increase passes through to the customer. That was our symbol 5 from before, some ratio. Let's say hypothetically it's a quarter, so prices go up by 5%. What's going to happen?
They're only banking on a quarter of this tariff passing through to the customers. Not happening.
Over here with demand, what's that going to be? Well, that depends how elastic demand is. That was our epsilon from before. And we could say hypothetically demand is 4 times whatever the percentage price change is. This does of course assume the elasticity of demand is linear. I looked up a much more complicated model from a research paper. There's your demand curve and you've got 2
Why didn't they use this model?
different supply curves, because there's what the manufacturer are actually getting and then there's what the consumer's seeing because of the extra tariff. Tau, we move to this point over here, and you can say it's linear, but what they've done is a bit of a oversimplification, and that's going to be a theme. But we should now just remind ourselves what we're trying to do. If you take all of your imports and subtract your exports, that's your trade deficit. If you divide that by the imports, that's the percentage imports have to go down. This is the reduction in demand required. Oh, and that's what we've just worked out here. So there's our equation. And if you move the fine epsilon under here, rearrange it like that, this is exactly what the Trump administration were using. But of course, it's much more complicated than that. The diagram I showed you before is actually from a paper that looked at what happened after Trump's 2018 tariffs, joint publication between the Federal Reserve Bank of New York and universities Princeton and Columbia. And this is the sort of detail you want to go into when you're bringing in tariffs. Look at this analysis. It's factoring in other things like how the price is going to change relative to demand. It's looking at possible reciprocal tariffs that come in. Like this is what you should be doing when you're planning tariffs to impact your economy. This level of detail. And we know they didn't put in that detail because on the Office of the United States Trade Representative page, they give all their working out and logic behind it. And there is our equation. And there is none of the detail we would like to see for something this complicated. They do admit that actually it would be very complex. I mean, if not impossible to do exactly, and that's true. But they just don't bother. They just decide to
So in their own release, they say, while individually computing the trade deficit effects of tens of thousands of tariff, regulatory, tax, and other policies in each country is complex, if not impossible, their combined effects can be proxied by computing the tariff level consistent with driving bilateral trade deficits to zero. So basically they just said, it's too complex. We're just going to do this instead.
proxy it by this equation. Now, I've seen the discussion online that maybe this was generated by ChatGPT or something like that. I can't comment on that or even the economics behind it, but I can talk about the maths of the equation. For a start, the M and X are the wrong way around. You should be subtracting exports from imports. So this, it's just technically a negative coefficient they've put in there, but also at the same time, they've said epsilon is less than 0, which mathematically is very funny because epsilon normally means something else. But in this context, maybe that means demand goes down when prices go up, and so that would kind of cancel that. It's just all very odd. And there's one more thing that really bugs me. Hey, editor Matt, can you crop me down and move me right over so the bottom of the equation is right there? Okay, excellent. There's these asterisks. What are they doing there? So here's the thing about an asterisk in mathematical notation. It's not how you would write multiplication. We understand it to mean multiplication, but that's because sometimes if you're using a keyboard or a number pad or something that hasn't got a multiplication sign, you use the asterisk as like a replacement to mean multiply. So actually in Excel, you'll use an asterisk to represent multiplication, but it's only really used in terms of like data entry. You use it when you're telling something to multiply. You never use it as a symbol to represent multiplication. For that we have the multiplication sign. Or some mathematicians obviously get quite lazy, so you'll see in more advanced maths, you won't use the multiplication sign anymore. You just put two characters next to each other, or you'll use a dot. Very rare. It's very odd to use asterisks to represent multiplication when you're typesetting maths, which is what they're doing. They're trying to show people what the formula is. They should just have them next to each other. I don't know why they've done. It's like writing a note for someone and at the end of it drawing in the cursor. It's not what you do in the written version of this communication, even though it's what you might do if you're typing it in somewhere. You don't like a carriage return, cursor on the next line. That's not how it works. So I don't know. It's just weird. The whole thing reeks of mathsiness, which is where you can dress something up in the trappings of mathematics to make it look more legit, make it look more earned or worked out or important, when what you may have done is just come up with an idea and then made it look more mathsy as a way to convince people you've put maybe more thought into it than you actually have. And again,
exactly.
I didn't just pick the values of phi as a quarter and epsilon as 4.
So 4 times a quarter is going to cancel itself out. It's going to be 1, and then you're multiplying by 1.
Random, those are the values the Trump administration used. And if you put them together, guess what happens to 4 1/4? Boom! They're gone. That phi and epsilon cancel out. It's like they're not even in the equation. Turns out this column is just the trade deficit as a percentage of imports.
They literally added those, the phi and the other one, whatever it was. They literally just added those to make it look more like an equation. They don't do anything.
That's it. It's that simple, except it's not applied consistently. And I know that because I looked up the data. Of course, I want to check everything for myself, so I went onto the government website to get the exact import and export figures for every single country that was in those first 2 charts I put in the spreadsheet. And thankfully, each page for those countries, there's a section at the bottom which follows a very similar format. So I pasted all of those into a text document. I could have done some kind of complicated scraping things, but for 50 entries, it was quicker to just do it manually. Because the sentences had all been generated algorithmically from their data, they're all very, very similar. So I could use find and replace to take out all the common bits and turn them into tabs, which meant that I could paste them into Excel, a little bit of tidying up, and there were 4 countries I couldn't find the data for, like Serbia and Tunisia and a couple others. I then had all the data, official government data, from the same department as the equation for 46 of those countries. It means I can now go through here. This has got all the countries in the order they appear on those printed out charts. It's got 2 numbers that were printed on the chart. I then over here have the import amounts from 2024 in US dollars and the export amounts in US dollars. I can then work out the deficit fraction, which is the percentage we need to get it down by. And over here, I've then predicted what it should be based on their formula. And next to it is what's actually on the page. And if you have a look, a lot of these are very similar. But wait a minute, what's going on here? Negative 17 and 10. I'm going to reorder these and sort them by that deficit fraction from smallest to largest. And down the bottom here, these are the countries where the US is running a trade deficit. And as you can see down here, it matches perfectly. It's often off by 1%, but not always in the same direction. So there's
But it's not going to be right when we're running a surplus.
Rounding going on somewhere. That's fine. But down here, these are the runs where the US is running a trade surplus, not a deficit. And so this is where the US are getting more money in than they're sending out. And all of these...
So we're running a surplus of 260% to the United Arab Emirates, but we're charging them a 10% tariff.
Should have, in theory, a negative tariff, according to their equation, because if the goal is just to have a balanced budget, then they should make the imports artificially cheap to move it back to being balanced. But it's not even just that. There's always this default... Okay, this is so weird. So for some reason, they half them all. So over here, they're all half, but it doesn't go below 10%. So what's interesting is 17 halves to 10, 20 halves to 10, and then 30 halves to 15. And from then on, you get... the halving effect. And that half amount is apparently here the USA discounted reciprocal tariff. So
discounted.
I'm not going to say they made up the epsilon equals 4, phi equals a quarter, but they're numbers that have come out of nowhere. And then suddenly they just chuck in a factor of...
Epsilon, that was the other one. Epsilon is phi.
2 or a half, depending on how you look at it. Like, why? Like, why? let's talk trade deficits very briefly. So the word deficit sounds bad and the word surplus sounds good. And I guess that would be true if you're looking at like money you are earning as a person or a business. But in terms of trade, they're just mathematical descriptions of the relative amounts of trade. There's no good or bad situation. A deficit can be good or bad. A surplus could be good or bad. It depends on all the details of what is being imported and exported and the wider economy. So for the New Zealand case, the US imports, well, primarily meat. Meat is the top import from New Zealand going into the US. After that, they've got other animal products, eggs. Important to get some more eggs in the US, and beverages, like wine. So that's what is going from New Zealand to the US. What's going from the US to New Zealand? Well, aircraft. Spacecraft, machinery, nuclear reactors. It's a totally different type of trade, like completely different items. And now you stop and think, well, hang on.
It always is, right? If they made it in their country, we probably wouldn't be sending it there.
Why is it important to import the same amount of wine as we export aircraft? Like, why should those two things be the same? You've got to look at everything separately. You might think, well, hang on, the wine imports make a difference to our local wine production, and maybe there are reasons to have tariffs to fine-tune your local wine production. Or maybe in terms of exporting aircraft, if you want to encourage more US manufacturing, then that's good. You want to be selling more. I'm just saying, it's not as simple as surplus good, deficit bad. So in conclusion, these tariffs are being sold as reciprocal tariffs, but they're not. They're not reciprocal tariffs.
I don't even think that Stand Up Mass does anything political. He's just doing the math.
Need to balance trade, and that in itself is being sold separately. If you don't listen to what Trump said, but you read what was put on the website, that's been sold as good. US are being ripped off with all these deficits. We need to get it back to be neutral or a surplus. And that's not true either. So there's some reason that they want to put tariffs on every country, and they've come up with a sufficiently mathsy way to justify it. And finally, speaking of taxing the American people, we'll use their exact wording from their website. They talk about what the unweighted averages are across all the countries, and an unweighted average in this case is meaningless because you can't average percentages because they're percentages of different amounts of things, has to be weighted. But they do tell us, weighted by imports, as it should be, the average across the entire globe is 41%. So that's the average tariff. And we know from their logic that whatever tariff you introduce, a quarter of that will be passed on to the consumer. Their numbers, their ratios, their everything, by saying the average increase in tariffs will be 41 percentage points, and a quarter of that, FI, the price pass-through, will go to the consumers. It means the Trump administration is saying that across all products imported into the US, from every other country across the globe, the cost to consumers for everything they buy will go up by 10.25%. On average, that's everything. Some will be more, some will be less. Consumer spending is going to go up by over 10% on all imported products into the US. So, there you are.
Do you believe Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
They're not going to have higher prices. What's going to happen? Who's going to have higher?
Do they still think the countries pay the? They still think the countries pay the tariffs? Obviously.
China and all of the countries that have been ripping us off for years.
Both those things are wrong. None of that's how that works. But it's just funny that on one hand they say tariffs won't put prices up and they're going to combat inflation. On the flip side, they are saying everything's going to go up by 10.25%, including, from New Zealand, eggs. That's it. That's the video. Thanks for watching. If you're a regular viewer, please get in the comments and say something nice. We've got to balance it out. It's going to be a nightmare. Hey, editor Matt, can you crop me down and move me right over so the bottom of the equation is right there? Okay, excellent. That lines up. There's things, these asterisks. What are they doing there? Yeah, that works. Thanks very much. I appreciate you putting the effort in the edit. It's good work. My pleasure. I think it's going to be a really good video. Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, I do wonder if all the people who watch this video who don't normally watch my videos, if they'll hang around and subscribe. I don't know if they'll subscribe, but I suspect they'll watch at least one more video. Yeah, surely.
All right, guys. The chat's kind of died down. I guess everybody's going to sleep. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Y'all have a good night, and I'll be back with you tomorrow. I know it's a lot of bad shit, but we'll make it through it somehow. We'll hang out here if nothing else. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. We'll see you around the next one. Have a good night. Don't do anything Trump would do because it's probably made up and stupid. Okay, so thank you guys for joining us. Have a good night. Support the stream while we're offline at coldbeer.fund, and I'll see everybody on the next one. Have a good night. That's right, Donna.
But I can tell you this.
We definitely pay for them.
Happens to see this particular show, you don't
Whoever imports them pays for them.
balls to call out the people on this planet by name and tell them exactly who they are and tell them the rest of the world who they are. You don't have the fucking balls. You don't have the balls.
Okay, Scott.
Here we go, I think I started some shit. Listen off, it's about to get lit. Get the place in the best, you know that stage is set. You better buckle up, cause you ain't seen none yet. Here we go, I think I started some shit. Listen off, it's about to get lit. Get the place in the best, you know that stage is set. You better buckle up, cause you ain't seen none yet.
And they say that I'm a lunatic. Well, listen, bitch, I came equipped with a quick wit and a 6 cents for the stupid shit.
Where my true believers? Y'all need Jesus. Praise the Lord, head to the extreme. All these false fucking prophets who profit off of gossip. Worshipping drums, cocking, begging for a throat deposit. Swinging fucking meat hammers like fool in a thong. He's strapped to the shaft, eating his chest like he's King Kong. Starving for attention, I'ma make your gut burst. I'll be your huckleberry, I can quench that thirst. Baby eating lizard people, alien sex. What's next? Trump in a dress, fucking Flynn on his desk. A retard in a vest, climbing up 5G towers. Cause you told him if he did, he'd get fucking superpowers. Here we go, I think I started some shit. Piss them off, it's about to get lit. Get the place in the bets, you know that stage is set. You better buckle up, cause you ain't seen nothing yet. Here we go, I think I started some shit. Piss them off, it's about to get lit. Get the place in the bets, you know that stage is set. You better buckle up, cause you ain't seen nothing yet. I used to find clues too when I was high on shrooms. I found myself a tunnel that led to Jason Q's bedroom. Open his closet, I found some of his meat rockets. I strapped it to my shoes and then I flew through the roof. I found myself in orbit strapped to an F-16. High on amphetamine, with Trump in between. Put on a light coat of baby oil and saluted the troops. He tapped me on the shoulder and said, "This is gonna be it." Whoa, wait. Stop. What? I'll get my files. Wait, what are you doing? Stop. Hold on. Fucking stop. Dude, come on. Seriously. This is my arms and alcohol. Give me a... Oh, my God. Damn it. Here we go. I think I started some shit. Piss them off. It's about to get lit. Get the place in the bets. You know that stage is set. You better buckle up, cause you ain't seen nothing yet. Here we go. I think I started some shit. Piss them off. It's about to get lit. Get the place in the bets. You know that stage is set. You better buckle up, cause you ain't seen nothing yet.
Good night, guys.
Down goes Nino. We say this.